Hello and welcome to Rev Sports. IPL is well and truly underway. But beyond the runs and the wickets and the results, the IPL often finds itself at the center of conversations around consistency, around governance, and also decision making. But in the past couple of days, a few incidents have again raised a very important question. Now, from matches stretching well beyond the expected duration without visible overrate penalties to over 4 hours every single time, to different approaches in paying tribute to on field consistencies, inconsistencies in umpiring, and even questions around the use of technology inside the dugout. These are not isolated moments. We've seen them happen over and over again throughout this season, but issues that go to the heart of how the tournament is being managed is the question that we're asking tonight. Shomik, I'll start with you. IPL games are regularly crossing the 4 hour mark. Every single day, it's going over to 11:30 p.m. Has this now become an accepted norm rather than an exception?
Looks like Dargi. I mean, it is the IPL is running on the IPL Standard Time because normally our 40 over game, 20 plus 20 T20 cricket is for 3 hours, right? Now, in IPL, there are strategic timeouts, so four strategic timeouts over two innings. If you take that into account, you can stretch it for another 15 minutes, fine. 3 hours and 15 minutes if you take it to the strategic timeouts. Every day it is going over 4 hours. Yesterday also, 7:30 the game started, and the final ball I think was bowled at 11:40. So that is 4 hours 10 minutes, and as yet we haven't seen any overrate penalty. So it's sort of free for all. If you want to follow the ICC guidelines, then that you have to follow the ICC guidelines. If you are not following that, then say that we are organizing a private league. We don't give it a damn. We don't give it a damn as regards the ICC rules. It is our own rules. We are following that. Then don't pretend that you are doing the ICC, following the ICC rules, everything. And if there are overrate penalties, if there is a delay, there has to be overrate penalties. We are not saying that at all. Not a single team. I don't think so. I mean, I might be wrong and correct me if I am wrong. But as of now, I haven't received any communication from the BCCI or IPL penalizing a team for slow overrate. So that is the thing. And if you are doing you are running a private league, you are doing it fine. But if you are adhering to the ICC protocols, you cannot do it.
Yeah, Ashok, because we're seeing a lot of inconsistencies, and certain rules applies to certain players, certain rules don't apply to certain players. Yesterday as well in that RCB game, Shomik and Ashok, if you remember, Tim David was checking the ball, and which is not allowed. A batter cannot check the ball, so nothing happened there. It's almost as if if it happens, it happens. It seems like that. But second question to you is strategic timeouts are already extending the game. Do you think there should be, a tighter control on overrates during play when we talk about this timing issue?
Oh, absolutely. The first one is an issue of approximation. Now, the Indian Premier League has been established not just as a league, but a brand which is a world class league. And a brand has to live by certain values. One of them is basically consistency. And the other is that you are going to be saying that I'm going to be exact and not approximate. Now, look at it this way, we are investing in high technology. We are investing in superior cameras. We are investing in tracking bat speeds, release angles. We've got matchups. We are looking at the latest technology to track the game and bring it alive for the fan. In such a scenario, to go in for approximation, saying that okay, now we are okay with timing, we will not put a penalty on overrates, delays, or that a player can come in and pick the ball. Those are approximations, and the danger is that then you're eroding the brand value of the league. The second point is that if you're going to not adhere to that timing of 3 hours, and the moment you go to 3.5 or 4 hours consistently, there is going to be a direct commercial impact because there is something called audience availability at a given prime time. The IPL was designed to be a primetime product, and primetime audience availability is restricted to those hours. The moment it goes beyond that, audience availability falls off sharply, and therefore viewership, engagement, and as a consequence, monetization is going to be impacted. Gargi.
Yes, Sean.
And Gargi, let me go to the grassroots. See, once the game is finished at around 11:20, at around 11:40, 11:45, there are presentations. Now, I'm talking about the common fans, and at the end of the day, you can have galacticos, you can have superstars on the field, but fans are the lifeblood of any sport. Without them, the sport is nothing. Now, 11:40, 11:45, the game is finishing. Then there are presentations. If someone wants to stay back for the presentation to hear from the captains, everything, then that is well past 12. Now in Bombay, the last train from Churchgate leaves at 1 o'clock. Right. Last train from Churchgate, I'm talking about the Western Line. And at least in Bombay, you can have the facility to have your last train and at 1 a.m. And think about the smaller cities. Think about how the fans would be commuting. Not every city, not every city has the luxury of a Bombay, right? Here, as far as we are concerned, the reporters, okay, this is our job. We had to cover a press conference. After that, yesterday we could barely manage to catch the last train. That is fine. Otherwise, we have other. But I'm talking about the common fans. We are not talking about the reporters. I'm talking about the common fans. And going beyond Bombay, 1 o'clock still until 1 o'clock, the trains are running. But smaller cities, when the fans will be communicating, and the advantage for Bombay, Calcutta, Delhi, Chennai are that the stadiums are in the heart of the city. You go to a venue like Ikana in Lucknow, that is far off from the city center. How will people commute? So these are the things you have to think about the common fans. When you can stretch as long as you like, but just give it a thought about the common fans. Just do it just tighten it up for the sake of the common fans because they are the lifeblood of any sport.
Absolutely. And again, like you are saying, it all comes down to the fans, and somehow they are always the one who catch the short end of the stick, and are always inconvenienced no matter what happens. The other thing that I want to talk about, Ashok, here is the fact that IPL observed a tribute for Asha Bhosle yesterday, which was widely appreciated and rightly so. But when you think about CD Gopinath, why was the gesture not extended to him as well?
It's a good question, and I think it's important to bring it up because Gargi, if the first one in terms of adherence to timing or in terms of the overrate penalty is approximation and therefore moving away from exactness, and the last point in terms of the player being allowed to select a ball, then you're not consistent in your rules. This one is about being selective. It's about being selectivity, where you are saying that I will not have a certain policy. You don't need to have a policy, but a certain theme around which I will mark some of these commemorations or some of these tributes. And that I'm not sure it works in a professional formal league because you need a transparent protocol is my point of view. And the other question there is there then an imbalance between celebrating cultural icons or cricketing icons, cricketing contributors? It's a fair and valid question to ask. Now, you may take a stance. You may say that, no, I'm going to be standing for this. Well and good. But if that's the perspective, then stay consistent with that. But you cannot be selective saying, now I will do this, at another time I will do that. I think, the question really is, does the IPL see itself in some ways as a custodian of cricket and cricketing history? Or is it just a contemporary entertainment product, something like that? So I think it is, all this is actually going to impact the brand, and that's something that all stakeholders need to be concerned about.
Absolutely. Your thoughts on this, Shomik? I'd love to know what you are thinking.
I totally agree with Ashok. Totally agree. I mean, absolutely. Yesterday, a minute silence was observed, and the players wore black armbands, and it was very appropriate given that Ashatai was a national treasure. You obviously, I mean, you will mourn the death of a national treasure, but CD Gopinath, former India player, former India player who also became a chip selector, just a couple of days ago he passed away, right? Nobody, I didn't see anyone wearing even a black armband, let alone observing a minute silence. And he is from your family. He is from your family. These are the players who he was part of India's first ever test win against England. And these are the players who contributed to the growth of Indian cricket. Without Vijay Marchand, without Vijay Hazare, without Vinu Mankad, without C.D. Gopinath, you didn't have Sunil Gavaskar. Without Sunil Gavaskar, you wouldn't have Sachin Tendulkar. And without Sachin Tendulkar, you wouldn't have Virat Kohli. This is how it flows. So just celebrate the history. Learn it from the way they do it in England. Learn it from the way they do it in Australia, the way they offer their tributes to the past. So it was absolutely, it was very, I mean, it was very heartwarming to see the players observing a minute silence for Ashatai, and the DJ playing her songs, and players wearing a black armband. But what about City Gopinath? I mean, isn't it? I mean, a clear case of discrepancy, isn't it? And that is something we need to address.
Absolutely, we do. And now going over to the third, topic, which is umpiring inconsistencies. If we talk about the gloves change incident, in one game, Hardik Pandya was allowed a gloves change, while Tristan Stubbs was denied the same request earlier. How do we explain that, Ashok?
Yeah, I think it's an extension of the points that we've been discussing so far. Consistency is a very critical aspect, and the lack of consistency can go a long way in eroding trust. It can go a long way in a feeling that this league is biased. Consistency, therefore, is actually the glue for a league of this kind, and you cannot tamper with it. These small things, when overlooked over a period of time, they add up to becoming a way of life, and that's the most dangerous thing that can happen to a league, the most dangerous thing that can happen to a brand. It kind of erodes what it stands for. And frankly, Gargi, I would say that a great league perhaps is not defined by how exciting or how well it does on a great day, but how fair it is on its worst day.
Shomik, do you think umpires, and this is a tough question, but do you think umpires are taking these decisions on a case by case basis?
It seems
Who
like
the
that.
player is, who the
It
player is?
seems like that because if you look at inconsistencies, why didn't you allow Tristan Stubbs to change his gloves, and 2 balls later he got out? And he had every right to feel aggrieved. He could have taken Delhi Capitals over the line. You didn't allow him ostensibly because of he is not a star, he is not a superstar, and you allowed the other one because he is the big star. If it were Pat Cummins, for example, would you have said the same thing? Would you have treated him like Tristan Stubbs, that you wouldn't have allowed him to change his gloves? Would you have done that if it were Pat Cummins? As because uh, so is it a case that even the match officials are starstruck? The league is starstruck. So these are the points we need to raise, because there should be inconsistency. You go to the Premier League. I'm not talking that Premier League is absolutely flawless, but in the Premier League, the rules are the same for a Mo Salah, for example, and the junior most player in the league, right? So basically, I mean, once again, I'm not saying Premier League is flawless, but if you look at different leagues, and the IPL aspire, and it doesn't aspire, rather it competes with the big leagues, big sporting leagues, be it Premier League, be it NFL. It competes with them. So these are the things. These are the things you need to address. Otherwise, you will face criticism. because our job is to raise questions. And if we see discrepancies, valid, and if there is a if there is something we think it deserves to be criticized, we'll do that. We are not being cynical, but it is our job to do fair criticism.
Absolutely. I think that you've hit the nail there. And now the biggest question that we've been talking about, the dugout conduct, use of phones. There was a visible instance of a team manager using a phone inside a dugout. There are clear rules when it comes to governing communication, when it comes to the governing body and the communication devices during matches. How did this slip under the rug, Ashok? How do it's baffling because when you talk about the anti-corruption agency, when you talk about BCCI's rules, uh, it's I can't wrap my head around it that nothing happened after that.
Yeah, obviously, I don't know how it happened, but what I'd like to comment is that these are the kind of creeping errors, inconsistencies, which will actually erode the league before you know what's happening, and that's going to be very critical. So, what's equally important is to figure out what you're going to do about it. What action you're going to take. How are you going to discourage this? And these things are best killed in the bud rather than allowing it to creep. Because once you allow it to creep or you turn a blind eye to it, it can really go out of control. Besides, of course, the anti-corruption angle that you mentioned, Gargi, I think it is really about maintaining a certain equity that you have built for the league over 2 decades. You cannot allow that to rot.
You cannot. There are a lot of questions in the chat box. Shomik, do you have anything to add before we move on to other
Yeah, I
topics?
just want to inform our viewers that BCCI has taken note of this, and the matter has been referred to the ACU. Romy Binder, the Rajasthan Royals manager, is under investigation at this moment in time. And after ACU submits a report, BCCI will take a call. Because as per the playing conditions and protocols, a manager can use a mobile phone in the dressing room, but not in the playing area, and dugout is clearly part of playing area. So there is a clear transgression, and hearteningly, BCCI has taken note, and the matter has been referred to the anti-corruption unit.
All right, so that's the update when it comes to that particular situation. A lot of people, Shomik, here are asking, do you have an update on Rohit's injury?
No, as of now, his injury will be assessed. That's what we were told last night. As regards Virat Kohli, Krunal Pandya said he would be fine. He felt his ankle and he didn't take the field. He didn't come out to field. But Krunal Pandya said he will be fine. But Rohit Sharma, the way when he retired hurt, his right hamstring was heavily strapped, and hamstring, I don't know. It could be cramps also. We don't know because yesterday it was incredibly hot. It was incredibly hot, so that could be a factor also. But we we haven't received any official communication from Mumbai Indians as yet. We have just been told that his injury will be assessed.
Okay, great.
So,
Yes, Ashok.
Gargi, I want to make a point, which is that the point that Shomik just mentioned, which is that yesterday was incredibly hot. I think as a former marketeer, I would be okay with saying that we are playing the IPL during the summer months. The temperatures are going to be very high, humidity is going to be very high, and therefore customize it to the nation, customize it to the market, and say that for example, the point about the gloves are going to get wet, and therefore you need to be able to give that flexibility to the players to change it. Now the question is, do you make everything formal and standardized, or do you leave a certain amount of flexibility in it? That is really the question, and this needs to be thought through well, because you cannot be inconsistent saying I will allow it for one player or one franchise, but I will have a different yardstick for another player or different franchise.
And one very interesting comment has popped up here, and I'd like to know both of your thoughts on this. Anirban Banerjee is saying IPL is an entertainment league. Nothing is at stake for the owners. Even if they finish 10th, they will get the same money as when finishing first. Is that why we see such laxity when it comes to these rules or these inconsistencies? Because it doesn't really matter.
Yes, there are downsides of being a closed shop league because as long as it's a closed shop league, but then again, this is a fair point. I mean, I will not say that this is the right thing, this is right or wrong, but whoever has come up with this question or this point, he has his logic. So, in a closed shop league, there are certain laxities, and this is why when in Europe, the big clubs a few years back, 4 years back, when the big clubs came up with the idea of launching a closed shop super league, the football clubs, then the fans vehemently resisted it, and eventually it was thrown into the bin. So at the end of the day, whatever we say or write, see, in every league, in every sporting competition, everywhere, it's not only sporting competition, in films, everywhere, fans are the all powerful. They are all powerful. So if you feel as fans, these certain things need to be corrected. Fans need fans need to voice their displeasure in a legitimate and a legal way. So that is the thing. Fan power. That fan power saw the idea of Super League being scrapped, and they said, what did they say? The fans said, you cannot take away our right to lose. Sport is not only about winning, it is also about losing. And the fans said, you cannot take away our right to lose. This is our right. Losing is our right. And this is how, I mean, this is how their thought process works. Now, manpower is the most important thing. And more than we writing or we are having a discourse on this, if if the fans make their displeasure felt in a in a legal, legitimate way, I think that is the right.
All right, Ashok, I'd love to know your thoughts on this, and then we can close the show.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with Shomik. Look, I think, and this is a debate for another day perhaps, but I think there are merits of the way the league is currently structured, where you've got certain there is no relegation, for example, and it's a league which was designed at one point of time to attract franchises to invest in a concept. There was nothing on the ground. It was a concept that was being sold. So the realities at that point of time were very, very different. And one could argue that there are merits as well in the way the league is structured.
Did we lose Ashok?
I think so.
Yeah,
Some issues.
yeah.
I think so. And
For a second,
I just want to add something to this, Gargi. At the end of the day, it's a 2 month. The league is 2 month long. So if you are having a 2 month long league, it has to be a closed shop league. It is not the round, and it is different from other sport because take the example of football. Football is essentially a club sport. Cricket is a country sport. We have the proliferation of T20 leagues, but at the end of the day, the game is controlled by the respective cricket boards, and it is a country sport. So until there is a radical overhaul, and going ahead, I don't know whether it will happen or not. Until there is a radical overhaul, and when it is a 2 month league, you have it has to be a closed shop league because in a 2 month league you cannot have 40 teams or 30 teams and promotion and relegation stuff like that. So um, these are the things we have to deal with in the existing structure, but um, uh, within the structure there is room for improvement, and I hope the powers that be, the BCCI, the IPL governing council, will look into those areas.
absolutely. All right. I think that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you so much, Ashok, for joining. He had some technical difficulties and had to leave midway. Thank you, Shamik, as well, for your insights. We'll be back very soon, so don't forget to join us then. We'll, of course, be building up to all the other matches. So stay tuned.